Hey guys, what's up? So, we get a lot of questions about the films we make, and we get a lot of reviews in our films which say that the colors in the films look great, that the visual design is masterful, and that the overall mood and ambience is just beautifully produced. What are the tricks that we use to make a mid and small scale film look like a big budget film? So, number one is the world design. We like to think about how the people in our world are feeling. Are they joyous? Are they sad? Is there great happiness that's going to come into their life? Are they positive? Do they have a negative outlook to life? Or are they just neutral? And that decides the primary color of the world. So for example, you can see this particular scene from a movie where everything looks very cramped. The primary color we use over here is a bluish tinge. This is reflected not just in the walls, but this is also reflected later in the color correction process. We want to give a feeling that the relationship here is extremely cold between the two characters. We also want to go into the state of the mind of the antagonist to show the distance he's creating between himself and everyone who loves him. On the flip side, from the same film, if you look at the protagonist, you can see that the colors surrounding her are a lot more warmer. You can also see that although we still use blue, the blue is closer to a bright blue, which signifies hope. In this particular scene, you can see we use a lot of neutrals. There's really not a strong movement towards a certain kind of color because the particular cop is approaching the entire scenario from a very neutral perspective. He hasn't yet formed his judgment. We still don't know whether he's a good cop or a bad cop, and he's supposed to represent the center of the film where the good and the bad meet. It is important to think about your world from the perspective of the people who inhabit it. For example, are the people in this world moving towards a dream which will lead them towards great glory or great despair? Thus, your colors can change, and without saying a lot of dialogues, even through a very specific shot, you can portray how the characters and the mood is within that world. So instead of using a lot of dialogues or a lot of exposition, why not just use the colors to tell your audience what's going on in the character's mind? Now, rule number two is how costumes mix with the rest of the colors. Now, I told you guys in the beginning that we are a small to mid-size indie, and a lot of the costumes that you see in our films are bought by me personally. So I go around from shop to shop in Mumbai and find costumes for our actors. Now, in terms of clothes, when I'm going to these shops, I do a lot of my research beforehand, but there are a few things I keep in mind. When I'm going to look for these costumes, I almost think like the character. I think that I'm the character who's shopping for these particular costumes. Why would he or she be picking this particular dress or this other shirt instead of all the other options that are open to this particular character? So for example, you can see in this particular scene, as the character is moving towards his house, everything seems extremely normal. There's nothing very extreme about the particular clothes he's wearing or the scene. This is to show that he merges with the environment, he merges with the people around him. So we really don't get to know who he is, and if we meet him in our everyday life, he'll just come across as a neighbor or a friend that we already have. In this other scene that you see, you'll notice that the main character and the car he drives are both maroon. This signifies that the car is an extension of this particular character. You'll notice as the film goes on that the car in itself is a character. It hides this particular protagonist's deep dark secrets. Also, if you notice, the particular girl in the scene is dressed in blue. Again, something that's akin to the sky. She's the little innocent part of this entire puzzle. She's still very innocent, she's still very young, so what she wears is a lot more vibrant. But by the end of the film, you'll notice that she too is moving towards a maroonish color, gradually. The only little sign of innocence that is still left with her is her head dressing, which is still a light bluish color. In this other example, we are creating contrast, where a pimp is called to a police station, and the way he's dressed up is completely different from his surrounding. He stands out, he's vibrant, but he's also a target in this particular police station. I personally went around different streets in Mumbai to find this particular outfit and also the shades. In fact, I tried out the shades before purchasing it because I really wanted to get a feel of the particular character. Contrast is also used in costume design. As you can see in this particular scene, I knew that we will be shooting in an extremely dark lit area. I knew that we'll be using minimalistic light, maybe 2 or 3 lights, So I needed the characters to be dressed in a certain way so that they stand out, so that the audience's attention doesn't move from them, because this is a one take. So the girl is dressed in red, and red will always stand out against a darkish background, whereas the male is dressed in a whitish creamish shirt, which also stands out to create that particular contrast. Now the third thing I want to touch upon is how we use lights in a very brief way. As you can see in this particular scene here, we don't just use lights to dress up the scene, we also use lights to tell about the character's psychology. For example, as this particular character enters his house, you can see that we have completely replaced all the natural lights, and now we are going into a house which is lit up in a very unique way, which tells us a little more about the sinister personality of this particular character. What he's on the outside is completely different from what he's on the inside. We also try to use lights in creative ways to show characters in a different light. For example, this particular character has been shown as someone very normal in a previous scene. But for a moment, when you catch a glimpse of the character in this particular light setting, there's almost a sense of something which is supernatural about her. We also try to integrate lights from objects inside the scene into our scene to create more drama. For example, headlights used in 2 different movies where we amplify the drama and add an additional light source into the scene. And of course, being creative with lights always helps. For example, in this particular movie where we were shooting in the busy streets of Mumbai, we decked up our auto rickshaw to look completely different from all the other rickshaws that are going to be in the surrounding, and that gave us great results. So these are very small tips on how you can make lights and colors work for you. I hope you learned something very important from this, and all the best.